Ukraine has a chance to receive additional interceptor missiles for Patriot systems from American arsenals. This opinion was expressed by retired General and former U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine Keith Kellogg. The general recently visited Ukraine for the 7th time since the start of the full-scale war, although this time as a private citizen. During his visit, he gave an interview to our channel. Watch the full version of the conversation next. General Kellogg, thank you for this opportunity. You have arrived in Ukraine in person, as I understand, at least for the 4th time since the start of the full-scale war.
Oh, more than 4 times. I think it's the 7th time already.
The 7th time. All right. Well, in the meantime, President Trump's current special representatives, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, have not yet visited Ukraine. If we set aside the reasons for this, do you believe they need to see the reality of Russian aggression with their own eyes before any further negotiations with the Russians?
The answer is yes. It's not just about them needing to see the consequences of Russian aggression. I think they should see the heart of this country, the hearts of its people, what they intend to do, the unbreakable energy of the country. And if you don't do that, if you don't understand that, how can you even negotiate about another country that you don't understand? That's what I think. I think it's a mistake that they haven't done that. So to answer your question, yes, they should do it. I don't know why they haven't done it yet. I have my own thoughts, but I've been here before working in the administration, and when I worked in the administration, and here I am today, for example, on Independence Day as a private citizen.
Speaking of potential negotiations, Putin is a former KGB agent. He only respects brute force? Do you personally believe that meaningful diplomacy with him is possible at all? And wouldn't any ceasefire that leaves Russia undefeated just be a prelude to a bigger, larger-scale war in Europe?
Well, I would disagree slightly with what you said. They have already been defeated. I mean, the fact remains. I will give you an example. By conservative estimates, between 1.2 and 1.4 million Russians have been killed or wounded. They, the Soviet Union, the previous Russia, withdrew from Afghanistan after losing 18,000. Right now, they have gained practically no territory. They came here with the intention of occupying the country and completely defeating it in a matter of days. 5 years later, they are still fighting. The minimal territorial gains they have made were achieved at a terrible cost. He has not achieved his goals. Is he in Kiev? No. Is he in Kharkiv? No. Is he in Odessa? No. Has he crossed the Dnipro? No. Has he won the war? No. So one can talk about victory, but he has not achieved it. The fears you should have and the concern I have is that if he achieves his goals, what he is striving for, where will he go next? The world has seen this before and has already made mistakes. Before World War II, Neville Chamberlain looked at Adolf Hitler and said, "We have peace for our time." Less than a year after that meeting, we were in a state of total war with millions dead. Do I believe this could happen again? Yes. The course of history proves it. Yes, when you are dealing with an irrational leader like President Putin, who has a different view of the world. As you said, a former KGB officer, once a KGB agent, always a KGB agent. He needs to understand that things are bad for him, not just today but tomorrow and the day after. And I believe that this message must be consistent and constant. You are not winning here. Why don't you just say, "I will not fight anymore"? End this so that everyone can start over and restore peace. I don't know. I think he is acting irrationally by thinking otherwise.
Russia is constantly seeking dialogue, trying to conduct dialogue exclusively with Washington, treating Ukraine as if we are not a sovereign state. But what advice would you give, if you could, to American officials who make decisions so that Washington would never make deals about Ukraine without Ukraine?
Well, you just said it yourself. Honestly, you said exactly what I was thinking and what I would have said too. The difficulty for the United States is that, remember, the Russians have nuclear weapons, and a nuclear power is treated significantly differently. And I think you are right. There cannot be any determination of Ukraine's future without the participation of Ukraine itself. Period. None at all.
As we enter the fifth winter of the full-scale war, Russia is once again striking our energy system and our civilian infrastructure with missiles, guided missiles, kamikaze drones, and new packages. You argue, and they argue in Washington, that Europe must take a leading role in security. However, the European industry is simply incapable of ramping up the pace to match the American one, at least not quickly. How does such an approach, that Europe must take the lead, align with the role of a key strategic ally? And isn't this, of course, excuse me, but isn't this just Washington stepping away from the matter?
No, I think part of this discussion, and it's quite appropriate in my opinion, lies in the rhetoric towards Europeans. Where have you been? You know, when we talked about strengthening NATO, strengthening European countries in the defense sector, they were simply absent. They weren't there, so now they are trying to make up for lost time. It's their fault. They should have done it. That doesn't mean the United States shouldn't provide support. Of course they should. But I believe that Europe is slowly starting to pick up the pace. The gap exists. I understand that, and I see it. And that is why it is important to join forces with the Ukrainian industry. They are fast, they are smart, they are flexible, they will get the job done. And in my capacity as a civilian, that is exactly what I strive to do. I am trying to bring American companies here to develop this direction. It is a pity that we have reached the current state. We once thought that the Berlin Wall would fall, that eternal peace would come for our generation, and that no one would have any concerns about war or the future. I believe that they, the Europeans, were mistaken, and I think they have completely different views than I do. That is why there is great interest in how they arrived at this. And now, because of our involvement elsewhere, we are forced to tell them our defense industry is not at the level we would like it to be. That is true. It is catching up and changing its approaches. That is true. Europe is not at the level it should be. And that is true. Are they catching up? Yes, they are catching up. So this is one of those situations where, unfortunately, Ukraine has found itself in the middle, caught in it.
President Zelensky stated that Ukraine is ready to purchase at least 5% of American Patriot stocks. Right now, the United States is negotiating the transfer and return of these missiles from its allies around the world, such as Japan. So, in your opinion, General, does Ukraine have a real chance of receiving a portion of these interceptor missiles to protect our cities? Ultimately, this is primarily a political decision.
I believe the answer is yes. There are alternatives currently being considered to achieve this. And when I return to the United States, I hope to discuss this with President Trump. The issue of protecting your infrastructure, your energy system, and your people. So I hope the answer will be affirmative. But since I am here and not there, we understand that we have exhausted our own Patriot stockpiles, and this is a unique weapon. And because our defense industry hasn't been producing them in sufficient quantities, we are forced to rely on others, since we used so many of them in the Middle East that we now have to obtain them, including from other countries.
And one last thing. In a recent interview, you called America a force for good and Ukraine the future Sparta of Europe.
Yes.
Which is fighting for freedom. If America is a force for good and Ukraine is holding the line for the sake of this good, why are we Ukrainians still forced to fight for every single aid package?
Well, I think it's not about Congress, because Congress has... The American system is structured differently. You have to keep sending the message. When you look at Washington or the American people, you sometimes think about Washington. But if you go outside of Washington to the American people, people support it. And I think our Congress is doing that. And how does our system work? Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives have to approve it, and then the President has to approve it. So the work is ongoing at that level. You keep thinking when you talk about this that it's not about the American people, but about the government in Washington. There is a saying in America that Washington is a swamp, and the rest of the country is not. So you just need to keep pushing through it, making your way, and ensuring there are people who will defend Ukraine's interests.
Thank you very much, General, and of course, thank you to the American people.
Thank you. I appreciate it.